All right, guys, welcome back. It's been a blink. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope everybody is safe. Um, Based on everything that's going on here in the last few weeks in the southwest portion of our region. But it's been a while since we've done one of these, so I'm looking forward to it. Hope everybody's doing well. Fall is here. I'm really excited about fall being here. I think it's one of the best times to fish for smallmouth and probably the most underrated, especially in our region. A lot of guys are putting their boats up for the year, maybe putting their kayaks up in the garage, and they're not fishing. And I think that's a big mistake. If you go back to our series in last year and our monthlies we did in October and November, is crazy how many citation smallmouths were caught in October and November and early December last year. Kind of hoping for a mild early winter, so we can roll until December again this year like last year. So far, my neck of the woods in the DMV, on Maryland side of Potomac River, we've had a beautiful couple days, 80 degrees, no humidity. It's just been beautiful. And so these are the great opportunities to get out on the river, barring what we've been facing with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Before we get into the fall transition, talking about the fall transition and everything that's happening in our river systems, it makes sense to start with Helene, right? Because that's going to change the barometric pressures and all that of that storm and the aftermath of our river systems. It basically throws, a wrench into all that, all the common accepted, fall transition that you'll hear about on YouTube and a lot of other places. You just have to oftentimes keep in mind that you need to dial in your specific area through the resources that you have in your specific area. Because a lot of times you'll get information from guys in Texas and, Alabama and Tennessee that sometimes aren't applicable to Virginia or North Carolina or Pennsylvania, right? Because these river systems are different. And you want to take that a lot. I mean, all of education is great, but you also need to recognize the fact that some of that stuff that you're listening to isn't really going to be applicable to your river system. For example, if your river system doesn't have shad and you're watching, videos on YouTube and following people that are, capitalizing on the bait fish balls and shad and herring and all that in lakes, that's really not applicable to a lot of river systems, right? Especially in the Northeast, that may not have that, right? So you want to make sure that you're like really focused in on what's happening to the bait fish during this transition, as well as how it impacts the behavior of the smallmouth. Before we get into that, let's recap a little bit. Our charity series ended for the Smallie Chaser River Bassin series. That is basically our year-long February to September 30th charity series. And our charity series this year was won by Mr. Troy Wines with over 106 inches. Go on Tourney X. You can check it out. That series alone, I think we had about 40 citation smallmouth caught in the charity series. 16 anglers, 342 smallmouth. That's a snapshot, okay? 16 anglers, 342 smallmouth, and about 38 to 40 of them, I think, were citation. Check that out on Tourney X. It's still up there. You can scroll down and see all the fish that were caught, the lengths of all the fish that were caught. But 106 inches in the charity series is just awesome. And, we're about ready to kick that off. We had our summer series. That was won by Tyler Fiorda. And now we're in the middle of our fall brawl chase series, which goes all the way until the end of November right now. You can still register for that on Tourney X. And that's off to a great start. Our last event, obviously, before the hurricane, was our Three River Watershed Showdown. Again, that was won. That was the first event this year won by Troy Wines in our series. That was a stage series event. He won that with 93.25 inches, followed by Shane Crawford with 91.25. I'm sorry, Shane had 91.25. Troy had 93.5. I think it was 93.5. 93.25. And then we had a tie for third place between Thomas Godby and Sam Godby. And Sam actually won the big Smallie for the event. a 19.5 on the Three River Showdown. That was a really great opportunity for guys to face off on 3 different river systems and watersheds. And that's something we're going to continue to do next year. I alluded to it earlier today in a video. We're probably going to do a lot more regional closer in. So we'll do Susquehanna, Juniata, maybe Clarion or the Yaak in that part, Potomac, Monocacy, Shenandoah in the central part, then New River, Greenbrier, and Holston down in Southwest Virginia in 2025. So that's going to be great. If you participated in the charity series, I want to thank you. We managed to procure and send down cases of water for Hurricane Alina recovery efforts from the charity series entry fees, as well as we have a portion for Lucky and Blessed, which is a nonprofit up this way, doing a lot with autism and special needs kids and taking a kid fishing. So appreciate everyone who fished in the charity series. It's fished with us all season long. It's been a really great inaugural first run season. It's been a lot of fun. But, we got to look forward to 2025. By the way, tonight, I got that Rugged Road QR code right there. Rugged Road has been great to us. And we'll continue to support Rugged Road and us into 2025. I believe that 20% off store-wide, site-wide sale, 20% off is going to end tonight. But there was $100 off coolers right now that you can take advantage of at Rugged Road, okay? So you want to make sure you do that. You also want to make sure that you check out, if you have not managed to pick up a Power Cream battery, either winning it in our series at all of our stage series events. We'll be giving away another Power Queen battery for the 5 River Showdown coming up this Saturday and Sunday. Take advantage of that deal. Let me see if I can pop it up here. So you guys can use that QR code. I think the 12.8 is now $179, if I'm not mistaken. For the 12.8 100 amp, it's now $179. Okay. You want to take advantage of that. We got really exciting things with Power Cream coming up in 2025 as well. There's a lot of other stuff they're coming out with, a lot of minis. And obviously for those of you guys who want some bigger batteries for campers, RVs, boats, and that, other than the 12.8 100 amp hour, we got them coming. So we're really, really excited about that. But you could take advantage of that $179 battery. Hard to beat that deal with the quality of you get. And we've been trying these things out all season long, and pretty stoked about it. So we've got the Fall Brawl happening. Right now is underway. It is on Tourney X. Current standings for the Fall Brawl right now. And this kind of started, it's taken a lot. Current standings are, Troy's in head with 172. He's caught 30 fish already. Jason Netzer had an awesome week. He's at 162 with 22 fish. Shane Crawford at 161.75. He's got the big Smallie at 19.25 right now in the Fall Brawl on Tourney X. A lot of the anglers registered for that are being impacted by the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. But again, it runs until November 30th. So it'll be real interesting to see everything that happens and as those river systems recover. And if they don't, and if we'll carry it over for guys, if they can't get out on the water, we're always great about that. Our sponsors are always great about that. Tourney X is always great about that. So just don't feel like you've got to go out there and deal with debris and deal with stuff like that because you registered for an event. It's just not how it works. At least that's not how our series works. And we'll make the necessary adjustments because we got one more event coming up. We got one more event. Got this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, 5 River Watershed Showdown. It's actually a 6 River Watershed Showdown. Because of Hurricane Helene and all the impacts, we had to remove the New River. The Upper New, which is actually below Clater up from North Carolina, which completely got the brunt of a lot of it in Virginia from Radford on down to North Carolina. Freeze and Galax and Freeze and places like that really got hammered. And then the Lower New, which is north of Bradford all the way to West Virginia. So we've taken that New River watershed out. We've taken the Holston River in Tennessee out. The North Fork Holston is still eligible because it has actually come back pretty quickly and is really, really doing really well right now. And we've added the James River from the headwaters of the James River all the way to, I believe it's Cartersville. So pretty much all the upper James and a slice of the middle James. Richmond is still dealing with everything that's coming down from the west. So that's really not, it's basically a debris field like Clater. It's really not conducive. But a big chunks of that, of the James, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 days are also going to be back, back to being in, better normal-ish conditions. So we'll see how that goes. And then Shenandoah. So you'll be able to, I don't know if that's on the Turning X or not. I'll update that as soon as I get off here. Because the Shenandoah is actually doing really, really well and actually fishing pretty darn good in the main section. That's closer to where I live. Haven't had any reports on the North Fork or South Fork there being any major issues. If there have been, please message me and let me know. But the main stem, which flows out of Front Royal all the way up to Millville and then into the upper Potomac, seems to be pretty much fire right now. And that's indicative of what happens on the main stem in the fall. And just like the upper Potomac and that watershed, wasn't as directly as impacted by Helene as people thought it would be. Obviously, the rivers did rise, but they've come really back down normal. Nothing like 2018, thankfully. But again, we know our hearts and prayers are still with the people in Western North Carolina and in Southwest Virginia that are dealing with that. Those of us up here know what that is like to a lesser extent, about half as much with the 2018 major flooding that we saw that basically devastated the grass and devastated everything on the upper Potomac, including the smallmouth population, that it's just really in the last 2 years begun to recover from. So really, really stoked, for the weather that we're going to have this weekend. Obviously, the rivers are not optimal, what we want for, with the transition that we normally expect. They've all been directly impacted one way or the other, by a hurricane. And obviously, everyone knows Milton's going to hit Florida here in the next 24 hours if it's not already hitting it. It's just crazy. And this is what happens when you chase smallies on river systems, guys. Like I try to talk to people all the time, the largemouth guys up here that just, it's like they get to just go fish their lake. They don't really pay too much attention to what's happening with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene or what's going to happen. They just go and fish lakes for greenfish. So God bless them. But that's kind of not what we're about. So we're at the mercy of Mother Nature. And how all these things hang out. And sometimes, things aren't as bad. Like, we don't really know, our rivers, New River especially, is a pretty resilient. It's the oldest river, I think, the oldest river in the country, and it's pretty resilient. So we'll see how quick it takes to bounce back. We'll have our events there in the spring. Big shout out on all the efforts of the recovery efforts going on right now at New River Junction. And the New River campground and canoe on the New River because they literally were like 16, 17, 18 feet underwater where we stayed this year. Cabins underwater, pavilions underwater, but they're working their tails off now to recover, everything they can and get everything situated and make sure that they're ready for the season coming up. And should be good to go by springtime. I mean, I'm just fingers crossed. But yeah, it's just been really crazy. And I know a lot of people have been out fishing this week in the fall brawl, and that's a good sign. Everybody's catching fish. Like I said, Troy's already caught like 30. They're all fishing different rivers, which is great. Great to see. And then we've got the 5 River event Saturday and Sunday. You can fish the 5 River event. You can fish Saturday only, Sunday only, both Saturday and Sunday. It's your best 5. Okay. It's your best 5 fish over 2 days. Gives you optimum time to either go to 2 places, or if your first place doesn't work out for you, because we know what's going on with these rivers. Just can't instill enough, make sure that you're well within your acumen, okay, in your kayak, okay. The rivers that are listed for the 5 river are basically down. There's no advisories on those rivers anymore, but that doesn't mean that, it's all good. You've got to pay attention to changing structure. You've got to pay attention to any kind of thing that may be coming down the river that's been brought down, and you want to make sure that you really pay attention to that. Okay, don't take everything for granted. Now, you want to make sure now in the next 24 to 48 hours, a lot of the ramps in these river systems are open. There may be one outlier or whatever that they haven't opened up yet. Obviously, the ramps on the new and Holston and Tennessee and all that, they're not open. I don't think yet. Okay. And if you guys have paid any attention to Claytor Lake, it's a debris field. I mean, that's just what it is. There's no way around that. Most people are concentrating more on Lake Lure and in North Carolina with all the media and stuff. But if you've seen the pictures from Claytor Lake, it's crazy. That's a ton of debris, and it's going to be a while before that gets addressed. So all that affects everything, right? In terms of understanding what's happened to our smallmouth populations and where do they go, right? Like, how do you diagnose this? Because this is not normal, right? That storm, even though that storm may not have directly impacted, extremely impacted your river system to the eye, meaning massive flooding and over its banks and dams and all that stuff, it still affected your river systems because of that barometric pressure change that rolled right up, all the way right up from, the South, all the way up through North Carolina, Tennessee, Southwestern Virginia, all the way to Maryland, and then over in Pennsylvania. Like, it still played a part in terms of changing the dynamic a lot about what's happening in your river system. Okay. Tomorrow I'm going to talk a lot about top water. I'm going to talk a lot about, because that's, obviously fall, we know under normal conditions, we are going to be just blasting crankbaits, blasting our crankbaits, and I'm definitely going to do a breakdown, probably 25 different styles and different crankbaits tomorrow, on a separate stream, just because there's so much, to talk about with top water. It doesn't matter whether, or crankbait or top water, and then obviously, there are guys right now up here, I know, power fishing, in the fall, with that spinnerbait. A lot of guys on the Susquehanna, a lot of guys on the Juniata. They got the native event coming up on October 19th. They're going to be burning that chatterbait. I can guarantee you that it always is the number one, but that doesn't mean that bait is going to be the bait that wins the event. Okay. It comes down a lot. Everybody's going to be throwing a chatterbait. And if everybody is throwing the same bait, sometimes, you guys remember, I think last year or 2 years ago, I might actually have it. Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't have it. I have it probably down in the shop. But the bait was a cicada, right? And then actually it was also one of the raids. I've got a bunch of raids tonight I'm going to talk about, but it was like a style bait, like the two-way. Okay, that was basically like Hellgramite-ish, spider-ish, right? And those were the baits that actually ended up finishing with the best in events on the Susquehanna, whereas everybody's throwing a chatterbait. So everybody's got this conception that the chatterbait is the best bait, the shiner pattern, and for the Susquehanna, and it is probably the most popular bait thrown there the last 2 or 3 years for sure. But it doesn't always translate into bigger fish because they've seen it a lot. And you probably noticed that on your river systems, okay? And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit with this transition, and for sure, there's guys are going to be rolling with the top water, right? Guys are going to be rolling. This is an awesome bait, by the way, awesome pattern from Lake's Edge Lures. They're going to be throwing whopper ploppers or choppos or crankbaits and spinner baits, and I like spy baits a lot. Under normal conditions, in the fall, but this year's not normal yet. I think the transition has been, what it is. It's been delayed because of Hurricane Helene and that drastic change in temperature. I mean, the water temperatures, if you pull up the NOAA data right now and you pull up the water temperatures, just pick 3 river systems in Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia. The temperatures are all over the place. I mean, some of them are in the mid 60s, low 60s. Some of them are in right in 70s. They're all over the place. So it's like not every river system's the same. Not all of them have been impacted the same. Depends on that. Like for up here where I am, and probably similar to most of you guys, if you've got tons of creeks, that's where I start in the fall. Is I start from the back end of the creek out to the main channel. Okay, because here that's where they go. The water in the fall is calmer. It's more balanced in terms of stays consistent in its levels, and temperatures and all of that, as opposed to out in the channel or the main river or the middle river. And plus, that's where the bait fish go. Okay. And so what happened with this rising water, it's pushing everything up, right? It pushed everything up out of the river into the tree lines, right? Out of the banks, right? And then as that river recedes back down and things settle down, that bait fish is going to move back into the creeks. My river, for example, has a bunch of chub as well that do the same thing. Your river may have fall fish. They're going to do the same thing. They're going to gravitate in there, and then that's where your smallmouth, or maybe you've got a largemouth river population. They're going to be feeding up. That's what they're going to be feeding up on. And so you really, really want to dial in, your size of your bait. You know what I mean? Action, size. For me right now, our river may be better than most. I mean, the Monocacy up in Maryland wasn't really impacted at all, really, other than clarity-wise, seemingly. But that clarity issue is where you want to make sure that, you're going with, knockers, and you're going with rattles, and you're going with that, to make sure that you're really going to get locked on by the smallmouth. Because they will be in that weird space between being very, very aggressive, but then also kind of like being in a funk, right? Because the bait fish are all scattered. That Helene and the high water scattered all the bait fish. And so now all the bait fish are getting back, like together. They're getting the band back together. You know what I mean? And then slowly, as we get closer to the weekend and into next week, things settle back down into like the normal like pattern where we were. Remember, before that hurricane hit, things were freaking straight fire. Okay. And then it just shut down completely. 2 days before that storm, 2 days before that high water, before all that rain moved in, at least to Central Virginia and Maryland, it was like they shut down. They knew they shut down completely. At least the big fish shut down. And so they're just now starting to begin again. You're just now starting to see pods of 3, 4, and 5 together, moving together. And when you see that should signal to you, okay, the transition is either underway or they're staging to begin that transition because they're about ready to feed up. Okay. And so it's all about how you're going to present, that bait and what you're going to present. And there's plenty out there of opportunities right now where, normally it is a crankbait or it is, something along those lines to target the smallies. Let me see if I can pull up, might not be able to pull up Bass Dope, but, let's see if I can pull it up. There we go. Don't sleep on the jigs. Don't sleep on any kind of your jigs. For me right now, anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge, I think it's still one of the most underrated baits. And there's plenty out there. It's not like there's like, it's not like a chatterbait, right? Where everyone, when you say chatterbait to people, everybody wants to talk about Z-Man, right? But I don't think maybe Dirty Jigs, maybe. I don't think any one manufacturer has like cornered the underspin market. Okay. I really don't. because I really don't think it matters. Okay. Once you get, once you have that style, it's more like, what size you want to go with. Um, and so absolutely love Melissa's at Thomas's, their underspins. Um, just because of the castability of them, just because of how they move in the water, and just because of the patterns that I can dial up to mimic my bait fish. And then a lot of people always say this, like, look, it's like there's so many things you can do with that. The same way we rig up, same way we may put a trailer on a chatterbait, same way we may put a trailer on a spinnerbait, right? Anything like that. You can still do. That's why I always go with the quarter. I always go with a lighter weight underspin right now, this time of year, because I then can add more weight to it. If I want more weight to it, I can go ahead and add. This right here is a 6 cents pumpkin seed, pumpkin gold. Freaking one of my favorites from my river system. But then you also, if you're a hover guy, if you're a hover rig guy, and you've got your strolling finesse baits, your soft plastics, like I do with Raid, you can do the same exact thing. Okay, you can use the same exact. This is a 4. I would probably use a 3 from Raid, and then you've got that. So you've got a little bit more weight, a little bit more profile, cast a little bit further. And so I just absolutely love it. If I'm not throwing a jig like the Candy Finesse jigs, or if I'm not throwing some of Thomas Custom Lures jigs, I guess there's plenty of jigs out there. Hayabusa, there's a whole bunch out there that I love to throw. But my go-to confidence to this time of year, like most of the time, if I can't get bit, I go to the underspin. I think it's freaking still completely underrated compared to other presentations, and it just works. Especially in tough bite conditions, and you could just change your coloration patterns up. So I'll roll through these real quick. These are the ones. Basically, we've got them for this series event for our 5 River for prize packs, but basically they're like, you can tell by the different variations of colors Melissa's got in here when she sent them to me, and I can break them down. Anything from the Chartreuse. The Chartreuse is a phenomenal one for like the Shenandoah river system. For some reason it's really great. You got that red, and you got that green that you want to pay attention to with a lot of because of what the bass see, right? But it is amazing how different colors seem to outperform on different fisheries. You know what I mean? Especially in the fall. I love hair jigs. This is why I love this, because it's kind of like a hybrid. But from traditional bladed jigs, which maybe are silicone or, and all that stuff, a traditional kind of jig that you can buy. I love the fact is it's a combination hair jig in a bladed format, and that's not something that you see a lot. Hair jigs are extremely popular. Another underrated presentation. It's probably gone more by the wayside because of the Ned rig than any other presentation. But from the fall into the winter, the hair jig is just a phenomenal bait. But the bladed jig can run all through fall and all through winter. So that's the Chartreuse. I really love this one that matches the coloration patterns of basically every bait fish in my fishery. Okay. And you can see it. It's pretty much, if you look at that Arbesh, the crawl pattern, those colors in the crawl. Okay. Another situation here. Right. And then you look at the colors in this. See? I mean, you dial in that color. Tomorrow I'll talk a little bit more about dialing in that right color pattern, and then applying that color pattern to your different presentations. A diver crankbait, a jerk bait, a square bill crankbait, any of that stuff. Your spinner bait, any of that in terms of the pattern. This is obviously the green machine, or just green pumpkin. That's basically what it mirrors. And you guys have seen this before in the spring and early summer. Same pattern on a Ned rig. Okay. No underspin, obviously, just flat out jig. And then with, a green pumpkin, 3-inch soft plastic. Boom. Ned rig. Done. Same thing. You just change it up just a little bit. And then obviously here you want to go with like something like purple. I got them with red too. What would the red? So what's the red? Why do we work with the red in October, late September, October? We work in the red because of the bleeding baitfish, right? Same kind of thing. And here's the thing, guys, that absolutely is happening because Hurricane Helene disrupted all of the baitfish, threw them everywhere, threw them into trees, into timber, into, and so you've got a lot of struggling baitfish. And then you have the issue of so much sediment and so much material coming down the river, and the water clarity, the amount of oxygen depletes inside the water column, right? And so what happens to the baitfish? Okay. And that's why, that's why you're kind of finding the smallies now away from the current. Okay. Because there's still, the river systems are still recovering from those high water events. And we know this, that when at least most of our river systems in Virginia do that rising water. Okay. When they open up that dam, I don't care what river you are, and that water starts to rise, it's like spinnerbait fest, right? Guys, feel free to ask whatever questions you want to ask about any debates I'm gonna do. I got a couple questions already posed here on text. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Fishing the DMV had a video up the other day with Chun Rees, an excellent angler from up my way. I see him out on the river quite a bit. He fishes a lot out of Algonquin, which is on the opposite side of the river from me, from where I launch from. I usually launch at Seneca, Violet's Lock, or Pennyfield, or Swains, because it's like 15 minutes from my house. I launch in that section. He launches above Old Dam 2, pretty much goes up from Algonquin, typically during the summertime. But Fishing DMV had it that he's the chatterbait king, and I said that if Chun is the chatterbait king, then Troy Wines is the spinnerbait king. Because it's interesting, those two guys go head to head a lot in a lot of events, whether it be like the KBF Smallmouth series or NVKBA and stuff like that. It's always interesting to see the differing styles, that come to play. Between really guys that really just have smallmouth dialed in like those two guys do. Love to get Chun into the series to fish some events with us in 2025. We'll see what happens. He used to run a series back before COVID up here in the DMV, DMV Bronzebacks. A lot of people participated in actually right when I moved up here. So it was the first series that I became aware of for smallmouth on the Potomac. But hopefully we can get him into some events here next year. Love to see him go up against, and love to see a lot of our guys go up against and learn from a lot of Chun's expertise for smallmouth for sure. But that's, so the underspin is definitely like, to me, multi-dimensional. Okay. And again, it doesn't really get any play. Okay. It doesn't. If you were down on the New River, like Adam could tell you, Adam's in the chat, he could tell you, out in the morning, we were down on the New River. I just threw on 6 o'clock while the coffee's freaking on, just throw the underspin on and catch a couple smallies right then. Boom, right there. Like, it's just like, it's a go-to. I think everybody should have at least, 1 or 2 underspins tied on, or at least with them, when other things don't work out. As far as jig heads go, I've kind of like adapted, from, always having my jigs produced or manufactured, right? Like if they're ready, they're good to go. They're ready to tie on and go, not have to do anything, not have to really think about it, right? But a lot of innovations have taken place in the last 3-4 years. Okay. We've got the hover rig, which Bent Rod, who sponsors a partner with us for the series, came out with an awesome hover rig. Most people are familiar with Core Tackle, but then you've got the other brands. This is always what happens, is somebody catches something and everybody wants to get on the wave, right? That's just what happens. So, name brands, obviously Japanese brands. And so right now, probably the 2 most popular jig heads that you're probably going to hear about, are going to continue to hear about till the end of the year, at least until into the spring next year, until we get a new cycle of new stuff, is probably the Horizon head, the Gamakatsu Horizon head, right? That's one that's just right now is like extremely popular. And a lot of that is tied to the hover mid strolling. A lot of that is tied to forward facing sonar. What's happening in the boater world. A lot more guys on the pro circuits are using the horizon heads now, as well as I actually prefer the smelled head. This is the one I actually prefer, and this is the 1/8 ounce. I actually prefer the smelled head because if you buy your strolling plastics, okay, your finesse plastics, okay, which I think, again, for smallmouth, are slowly moving into the tube category, okay? Everybody knows the tube is just phenomenal lights out, okay? Been tube fishing. Most of us have been tube fishing probably our entire lives, right? Probably started on a tube, okay? But now the Finesse, Great Finesse, Great Lakes Finesse, okay? Snagler Tackle's got a bunch. We're up in PA. They're always at the expos. You can check them out. Now everything's getting, even Megabass has gotten into the small finesse game, okay? But nobody does this better than the Japanese, okay? Nobody, in terms of soft plastics. And what I like about the fact is number one, they've got 3s, 4s, 5 inches, right? So you got this in basically 4 sizes, okay? And so depending on the size of your bait fish, you can obviously rig this on if you're out and you're in your deeper water and you want to do some mid strolling and you can target them, and you're maybe using forward facing sonar, or maybe you're using a kayak and you're using your graph and you're locating the bait ball, you're locating all that stuff. You can actually roll with the exact size, mimicking that bait fish. In the patterns, right? But here's the thing about this that's unique is you certainly can use your core tackle, your standard hover rig, but then you also have it already to change it up and to go with a smelt head or to go with a horizon head. Okay. And so that's what I think is kind of like you want to buy. And to me, you want to get an arsenal of soft plastics that are multidimensional. Okay. They're not just for one presentation, unless you're highly skilled at a shaky head. Okay, unless you're highly skilled at the Senko, and that's what you want to do, and that's your comfort, and that's your But for me, those things are more largemouth bass. For me, the drop shot is more smallmouth. A lot of the strolling plastics, and so like Raid has basically, it's absolutely crazy. Okay, so here's the sandfish. This is a sandfish. It's one of my favorites because it really mimics the shiner, okay? Which you're going to find in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, okay, more or less, in Ohio Valley. And basically this is the 4-inch, okay? And so, and it comes in like, if you're emerald shiner, if you're going October 19th and you're going up to the native event, right there. That's exactly what I'll be bringing with me. It's an emerald shiner. Okay, mimics exactly the emerald shiner. It is their dark cinnamon, dark cinnamon shad, but it looks just like an emerald shiner that you're going to find in the Susquehanna and in the Juniata. Okay, and then stealth fish. Okay, so these are all the 4s, but I've got them in the 3s, the 4s. But here's the thing: if you are really, if you're really just crazy, and it's fun to do. And it's crazy how many fish you can catch. Is check out the micro, okay? This whole new micro craze from iCast of this 2024 micro finesse is going to continue into 2025. All the baits are getting smaller and smaller, okay? And so I probably have 100 different soft plastics now that are literally 2.5 inches or smaller, and I've never had that because, again, start to present baits that nobody else is presenting. Okay, look how tiny. I'm gonna take this out. Look how tiny this bait is, guys. And if you've got one of those small little underspins now that they're coming out with, okay, that are like crazy. This thing, it says, another thing about the Japanese baits, guys, I'm gonna warn you. Okay, and I'm going to show you in demonstration here. Okay, it is not like our 3 inches, okay, or our 2.5 inches. All right, so just keep that in mind. Look how tiny this bait is. Look at that. That's the micro fish roller from Raid. Okay, that thing. Trying to now in Japan again. Good luck going to Dick's. Good luck going to American big box store possibly and locating the right kind of hook for these micro baits. You pretty much got to go with the Japanese hooks. Like you got to look at Decoy, where you got to just start there. But it is unbelievable how small the baits are getting now with BFS, and that kind of stuff. But again, this is the micro, and this was actually the smoke shad, by the way. And again, that's just another new like wrinkle, right, in the mix. And that's what I love about Raid. Raid and Jackal are probably two of my favorites. I know most people are probably more familiar with Megabass, and Megabass certainly is great in the more in the hard bait market, obviously, with jerk baits and crankbaits, and their underspin's freaking crazy as sick. If you check out the Uzi from Megabass, then that's this. Okay, it's just bigger, just a bigger profile, and a lot of times a lot heavier weights. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, and then you got like, okay, so this is a 2.6. So we're talking like finesse baits right now. Bite is tough. Obviously, we know I'm going to talk about crankbaits tomorrow on top water and all that stuff. That's not working. Okay, so you need to go to, okay, right? You need to go and throw the change up, right? Which is kind of like where my river has been. My river has been, and forever, okay? Because there's just tight windows of where that whopper plopper or that chatterbait or that spinnerbait's probably more effective, but the other traditional buzz bait, right? They work, but they're real tight windows. And so the tube always works. The Ned rig always works. The fish roller always works. The underspin, it's like they're just some, especially if you're anywhere, especially with the underspin, if you're anywhere around current, okay? The smallmouth can't lay off it. Okay, it doesn't really matter with this bluebird skies, and it's a beautiful day out and it's hot in the summertime, or it's right now. There's something about them not being able to lay off it. If you're not getting hit on that, they're not there. That's kind of how I look at it. A lot of people don't have the patience. A lot of people don't have the patience for the Ned rig or the patience for the tube anymore. I don't know where that's coming from. I think it's because of the chatterbait. I think it's because of the power of the burn. People want to burn bait so much, and I just think they're missing opportunities. Okay, and so here's a 2.6. Okay, we're talking Raid right now. Rated Japan. This is a size 2.6. Look at the size of this. You tell me if you think this is a 2.6 in anything that you've seen on the shelf from any of the American bait companies. Look how tiny that is. Baits are just smaller. I love this because it's got that awesome shinerish kind of color. One of the other little tips for you that I found this year that I wasn't really as dialed into until this year, actually last year and this year, the last 2 years, is, if you're going to Kitech or you're going in even Guggen, I got some Guggen here. I'm going to do a lot of Guggen giveaways. I'll do a Guggen giveaway. Just type in the chat. If you're on YouTube, just type in the chat Guggen. Is that cream bottom. Okay. So you've got your top color and then often that creamish bottom, which mimics a lot of the cray, okay, that you're going to find in our basins. Okay. Obviously, yeah, that's probably doesn't apply to guys watching this in the deep South, Louisiana, and down towards there because their crawfish are different. Different color, different size. But ours tend to have that brownish cream bottom. So that's that color, and we'll put this up against each other. That is that's a 2.6 Battle Hog, and this is a different color. I'm gonna give you the juice on this. This is probably my favorite color. I'll put these side by side. It's just a darker version. Okay. It's just a darker version. And it's phenomenal. But again, see the belly? Bellies are that light, creamy color. And then the coolest thing I found, and you'll find in the Japanese baits, is there's a lot of similarity and continuity between the manufacturers. In terms of this right here, from Jackal to Raid to Bottom Up to Hide Up, and I got Valley Hill, I got a bunch of them. Okay, is how they concentrate on this right here and its action, in the water column. And so almost all of them have their own version of their crawl, you know, to a lesser extent. One thing that I've noticed, and a lot of other people probably maybe just kind of like not even really thought about, is you don't see very many of the Hellgramite style in Japan. Nico, obviously, but that's sort of American twist. But you know, and you know, you don't see that with a lot of them. Now you've gone to more of the Spider, the two-way, the big way, the Magnum. You've got a lot. Geek Crack's got its stuff. You know what I mean? It's kind of like crazy, but like none of that's really like the Hellgramite, like Nico. Okay, that's what I think is kind of going to be coming in 2025 with a lot of them. But again, this is the 2.6, 2.6 Battle Hog. Adam says, grab a ruler, bro. Yeah, that ain't 2.6. That's what I'm saying. So when you're ordering, you can hit me up, and I got specs on all these, you know, for the tackle shop. But like you kind of need to know. The other thing about Japan, is it's hard to freaking figure out what the actual colors are, because a lot of times they're not on the packaging. Okay, it's just not. It's codes, or it's in Japanese. So that's another hurdle that you got to kind of have to figure out when you're looking at that. But this is the 2.6 Battle Hog, and then here's the 3.3. Okay, so the 3.3 Battle Hog. Look how much bigger the 3.3 Battle Hog is. Okay. All right. Let's do the side by side. Okay. And so when you're looking at that, and then so 2.6, 3.8. Okay, look at the difference in that, guys. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, you know, you may not want to go this small. You may not want to go. You may think you want to go. Whatever the size you think you want to go, because a lot of guys like 2.5. If you like 2.5 and you're used to throwing 2.5, go up to a 3 if you're getting Japanese baits. Just go up a 3. Go up a 1/2 inch to an inch, and you're going to be happy. You know, based on what my experience on the new river this year, and my river, this size is basically the sweet spot. Okay, and that's a 3.3. Now you can get them to 5 inches. Okay, and so just keep that in mind. And here's one that's like the scup, man. It's more like, I don't even know what the name of the color is. What is it called? I call it the scup because it's like, it's got that red, man. It's got that real red when the crawl get to be that color. That's awesome. So that's a 3.8. So this one's a 3.8, 3.3, 2.6, 2.6. Now, you two guys, probably one of the things that I like the most about the Japanese and finesse fishing, especially in the fall, if you're a tube guy and you don't, like Adam mentioned, you know, he struggles with the tube. Okay. And this one, I think is way easier and less finessey, in terms of having to sit there and kind of just like be patient with it, because of just the way it's just is constructed and built. It's called the buggy crawl. Okay. And I fish the buggy crawl like the tube. Okay. Same way you would any standard tube. And when I show you this, you're going to understand why. Okay. It's just like the tube. Okay. So you can present it every single way that you want to juxtapose a tube, you know, whether on a jig head, whether you just want to do weightless, whatever you want to do, that you would normally present a tube, you can present this bait because because the way it is, it's just like from here to here, it's just like a tube, right? I don't know if I have a standard tube up. I don't think I brought up a standard tube. But it's just a phenomenal bait. And it's got all that action. So just see that. Look at that. So if you've got this bouncing off the bottom, there's so much stuff happening there that it's crazy. And again, if you notice, this is very similar coloration pattern across this spectrum. And obviously you can go and there's tons of colors. Raid's got crazy colors from pink to purple to chartreuse, all that stuff. But if you're really like want to dial in the smallies, my thing is natural colors. I just don't think you can go wrong at all. Another one, it's closer to you guys, you know, and this year I actually had a lot more success with Hellgrammite style baits. In the bug category is blowing up in Japan. The bug and the shrimpy kind of category, like the koki. So look at that. This is just a small version of, to me, it's not a bug. To me, it's just a small version of any typical crawl bait that you're going to find, right? Just a tiny micro size crawl bait, only it's got that in that space, that ripple in that, like a spring, and the way it works in the water is different. It's like, it's violent. Like, it's like these things are like crazy, crazy. And again, the smallies can't lay off them. But the downside to that is just keep in mind, you're going to go through these. Okay. You'll definitely go through these because it's a snack. For the smallmouth, you're going to get bit. But you're going to go through a lot of them. So just keep that in mind. That's the ego bug or ego bug from Raid. So that's the fish roller, the battle hog from Raid. Again, probably my second favorite soft plastics right now coming out of Japan. Absolutely love them. And they just got so much more stuff coming for 2025. Now, let's talk a little bit about Valley Hill is probably one that you guys haven't heard about yet. Okay, there's probably two. There's probably two soft plastics from Japan right now. Most people haven't heard of. Most people don't have in their arsenal or their tackle box yet that they probably should. I'm assuming that most of you guys should be familiar with Kitech, should be familiar with OSP and Mega Bass, right? Those three are kind of like a no-brainer. Valley Hill, Hide Up, and Bottom Up are three up-and-comers. But the one that I actually prefer and love the most people have never heard of, is Adusta. They make the same kind of baits as Raid, same kind of baits as Mega Bass, like the soft plastics, like Mega Bass. And they just put like a really, really unique. They're typically a lot less expensive. And for Japan, I mean, think about that. Let me see if I do. All right, right now I got the Gadget Crow. Okay, right here. Okay, I love that green chartreuse color too. For you guys are probably familiar with Depths. The Depths is another one in that upper category. The Depths crawl. But this is the Gadget Crow 3.8. Again, it doesn't really seem like it's 3.8, so it's more like 3.5. But again, like I said about that ribbed nature to it. Okay, and remember how I said that some of them are on the back end. This one's obviously in the front. Okay, it's got a lot going on. Okay, and like I said, Adusta tends to be a little bit cheaper. But they have the same type of soft plastics for for trailers and for just weightless presentations, whether it be crawl. That's the 3.8. I know I got a couple more in here. Let me grab all my best stuff and see what we got. Again, like I said before with the previous colors, color variety, you can check this out right here. Matches what I talked about with the Raid. Okay, that color, just a dominant color. Okay, that you want to look at that. Yeah, Adam, Reigns is good too. There's quite a few. I think they're more like their market is more like the worm. In terms of the variety that they have. Than necessarily creature baits and crawl. And definitely the finesse stuff. They're definitely more. They got solid colors, crazy different lengths too. And this is OSP stuff. And you guys, I mean, it's predominant. There's so much more. Most of the ones that you're going to hear about, like the Do Live, Do Beaver. Here's a bunch of those. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Do Live Beaver, but again, this is the 4-inch and the 3-inch. I'm going to take this out and I'm going to show you. This is probably the #1 and most popular soft plastic bait next to the Shakamata Shad in 2024, 23, 24. This one's been around for a while, but it's still probably one of the top 3 soft plastics out of Japan. Okay. And they'll come in and out in the States to where you can go months without not being able to get any. And this is the 3. Again, OSP, a little bit wider. Just creates a different action. It's thicker in the back, a little bit wider. This one's a little bit slower, subtle motion when you're on the bottom. And it just entice strikes. It's just different. So it's not as active as some of the other ones that I showed. The material is different. It's thicker. It's heavier. It may be a 3, but it actually freaking feels like a 3.5, 3.8 in terms of weight. And I think that's what makes it a lot more effective. That is the 3, and then you can kind of see how much the disparity is between the 4 and the 3. Okay, it just all works up like that. It's just really, really interesting. A bunch of color on those. So the Valley Hill is one of those baits I was telling you about. It's kind of like Nico, like in terms of that bug Hellgrammite niche. Okay. And start with the Devil Shakers. Okay. These are absolutely killer on the main stem Shenandoah. The confluences, really any confluences that in terms of Monocacy and Upper Potomac, Shenandoah, Upper Potomac, around Front Royal. I know guys that that I've introduced Valley Hill to. That literally it's and it's not one of the ones you can find very many places. You're definitely gonna have to online or just hit me up. If there's any particular color patterns you're interested in, hit me up and I can get it for you. But let's take a look at this. These are 2.3s. Again, finesse, right? That's what we're talking about during the fall transition right now when it's a stubborn bite, right? And that crankbait's not working, okay? And these are going to be big-time players next year in the BFS and the micro game. And not just free. These are awesome, great. You can throw these on the Ned. You can throw these as a trailer. Extend your profile on any jig head that you're using. I can use it. I've got the green, grab the green machine. Okay. Because this is like a watermelon pumpkin like candy color. So I've got that. And look at that. I can just add this okay, right in here. And I've changed that profile a little bit, right? I've changed that action on the back, okay? And that's what I'm talking about. So always think about like ways in which you can utilize your soft plastics multiple ways. Most people would probably not go with a 2. I'm not gonna, why am I going to buy a 2.3? What am I going to do with a 2.3? You would be surprised. Okay. Think easy meals. Okay. And that's what a lot of people, yes, there are times, Troy Wines could tell you, there are times when the smallies are going to chase down they're going to chase anything. The spinnerbait, the whopper plopper, the chatterbait, big fish, small fish, they're just in that, they're going to chase. But the problem is when that barometric pressure changes after a hurricane and the water temperatures drop suddenly, okay, everything slows down. The metabolism slows down. It doesn't speed up initially, right? It slows down first for them to initially react to, oh, winter's coming. I need to start feeding up. Doesn't happen overnight, okay? It takes a little while. That's why it's called a transition. It's like a revolution, right? It's always coming back around and biting you in the ass, all right? Transition means transition. It's moving. It's not sudden, okay? And so when they get to that point where they're not going to chase that chatterbait in 61-degree weather, 61 degrees, 63, right? After it was 75 and it dropped to 63, they start freaking out. They just had a high water event where the river went from 2.5 feet to 12 feet. Now it's falling back down. Their bodies are in shock. They're not really going to have the appetite to go and chase a long way, you know, and a distance, we're talking about a long way is 10, 15 yards. They're not going to be interested in that. Okay. You want to be presenting them with an easy meal to get them started. Okay. And it's not uncommon if you miss something to, you know, if you actually miss the strike to follow it up with either a finesse or vice versa. If you miss it on the tube or you miss it on the cover crawl from Jackal, I think I got a couple of those. If you miss it on the cover crawl, one of the best things you could do is immediately pick up that chatterbait or immediately pick up that whopper plopper and throw it right back in that area, especially if you're working a seam. Now, right now, you know, you're not really, depending on your river system, seams aren't really prevalent, right? Because of the high water and the current flow. Everything's blown out and in recovery mode, okay? But when you're in the summertime, late spring and summertime, and you've got visible seams, right? That's what you can do is you can start with the finesse. You can start by throwing the two. And most people do not do this. And I, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why. And how I understand this concept, and I'm sure a lot of you guys who probably fish the Susquehanna a lot more than I do, and the New River a lot more than I do. If you've ever fished behind guys that are burning the chatterbait, it's all run and gun, right? It's basically they're just moving. They've got their trolling motor going. You know, that doesn't mean you have to be going full bore, but they're just moving and they're just throwing that chatterbait and they're just working. That is working. And if you stopped and you just waited, they're going to be 25, 30, 40 yards away from you in a few minutes, right? Because they work that bank or they work that area, right? And then if you go in, you slip in behind them, okay? And you throw a cover crawl or you throw a fish roller, okay? You throw anything like that, you're going to get bit. They completely miss them, okay? Because they're moving along. Now, obviously, they're going to go along and they're going to get bit a certain percentage of the time. But if you go behind them, it's like you learn these things as a co-angler on the back of a boat, okay? You're not going to fish the best water as a co-angler. You know that going in. So you've got to find ways like, okay, he's going to be fishing forward-facing sonar. He's going to be looking down on the screen. I'm going to be fishing old water. I've got to throw something that's going to, you know, basically call the fish to me, right? So in those circumstances, I always go with a lipless crankbait. I always go with something that's got some knock and some noise, right? Because that's just the situation you're in. You're not fishing really good prime water. Your boater is. It's the same if you're kayak fishing and someone's in front of you working in the area. Let them work it. I love to be behind power guys because power guys have no patience. They have zero patience at all, okay? They're going to burn it and they're going to work it and they're going to do it all day long, up and down, up and down, up and down. And that's fine because it gives you an opportunity to come in behind them and give those bass that may have gotten excited or maybe had missed or maybe never made the strike or made the commitment. You're coming in right behind them along a seam line and dropping a tube, or you're dropping a Ned rig, or you're dropping, any of the devil shakers or finesse baits, or you're gonna slow roll, something in there like a bladed jig, okay, as opposed to a chatterbait that they've seen. And not only have they seen it, mates, they've heard it, okay? If you are a chatterbait fisherman in 2025, going into 2025, I can make one recommendation to you. Buy some Japanese chatterbaits. I'm just going to say that because 9 times out of 10, your smallmouth have never heard that noise. That blade is different. The head is different. The noise, and I'm not talking about the evergreen, which is pretty much just like the Z-Man jackhammer. Although the colors I think are better than Z-Man, to be honest. But I'm talking about some of the others. The break blade. I'm talking about some of the other things that are chatter-like baits from Japan that your smallmouth have not heard of. Okay? And so you basically, that's what it's about. It's about, getting bit, right? But it's also about tricking them, because they get conditioned. Okay? And that's why you're finding a lot of people. That's why if you talk to a lot of the professionals, especially Smallie guys, they will tell you that the forward-facing sonar and the mid-strolling and the hover-strolling craze that began at the end of 2023 and was run into 2024 by the Japanese anglers before it became really like more public. I mean, fish roller's been around a while, guys. That actually changed the game, okay? Because a lot of the bass were being conditioned to that chatterbait. Chatterbait bags had dropped, and they're continuing to drop. Again, doesn't mean that you can't catch largemouth and smallmouth bass on a chatterbait. I'm not a chatter hater. I'm just saying that, like the whopper plopper, your bass get conditioned to that thump, that vibration, that noise, that sound in the water column. They get used to it, okay? So unless you're coming across, an 18, 19, 20-inch smallmouth bass that's never been caught before, okay? Can happen. Certainly can happen in some of these river systems. I'm not going to name them, but we know who they are, okay? That don't get pressured, and they're known as trophy smallmouth rivers, okay? They don't get pressured a lot because there's not a lot. Ramps are 26 miles apart, okay? So they don't get pressured as much, okay? So, yeah, there are instances where they haven't seen it. They haven't heard it as much. But if you're talking about state-run ramp, DNR and DWR ramps or lakes like Hunting Run in Virginia, Beaver Dam in Virginia, okay? Like you're talking, Burke in Virginia, all right? Lesser extent the big ones because there's a lot more on Smith Mountain Lake. There's a lot more at Lake Anna and Lake Gaston in terms of areas. But a lot of your smaller lakes, these fish have heard it all and they've seen it all. You got to do something different. And that's where some of these baits come in and some of these presentations come in that are just absolutely killer. And the easiest explanation as to why you get bit with these baits is because the fish just haven't seen it before. And that's really, it goes with the Candy Finesse jigs from Bass Dope that's up, that I got on there. It's the same thing. You need to check out. He's got some chatterbaits, chatterbaits, the Finesse jigs, spinnerbaits. He's kind of got it all. And they're all effective, at different times of the year, for sure. And so you definitely want to check those out. And again, any of the information, if you're part of our community, you obviously should be in our Discord, so you can figure out how to get your hands on a lot of the custom baits from, a lot of our sorry, guys, I'm just pulling this chat back up. See if I missed any questions. Yes, Adam, about the cooler. Yeah, you got to check those coolers out, guys. $100 off a cooler. Their coolers are sick. They float, okay? They're multifunctional. You definitely want to go in there and check that out. Terminal tackle, one of the ones I missed when I was talking about the horizon head and the smelt head. Remember, the smelt head was my favorite. Everything that I have shown tonight for fall transition. Okay, when we're talking about the metabolic change, it's a metabolic rate decrease in our fish. Okay, so let me just read you technically what the technical. Now, if you've subscribed to the newsletter, you know, maybe I should put the newsletter up in here. So you can. Maybe it's not going to let me do it. Could be. Anyway, if you're subscribed to the newsletter, then you know the dealio. Okay, with a lot of these that you can get your hands on, and just shoot me a message. Bingo. And this is all in the newsletter. So if you want a full breakdown of the fall transition, what's happening, again, caveat, back out Hurricane Helene, okay, and Milton, okay, because that's going to actually blow up everything, okay, a normal fall transition, which we hope to get to here in a few weeks, okay. As the water temperatures drop from the warmer summer highs in the cooler ranges, typically from the mid-70s, like we saw right before Hurricane Helene hit, okay, down to the 60s, where they are right now, okay, 10 days later, all right, or lower, the metabolic rate of smallmouth bass slows down, okay? So what does that mean when the metabolic rate slows down? This decrease affects their activity levels and feeding patterns initially, okay? The transition between the drop creates a feeding activity, all right? So you want to get them in the two windows, okay? What most people aren't going to tell you, I don't think, because I haven't seen anyone talk about it much on YouTube, is there's actually two transitions that take place, not one, okay? And they're both related to two things, water temperature and clarity, like every other time of the year. You can have clear as can be water, but if that temperature hasn't fallen, right, they're still going to maintain that late summer pattern, okay? And they're not going to feed up, okay? You're not going to find them in pods roaming around. You're going to be picking off single fish, okay? And you maybe have experienced that already, where you basically are catching them a fish an hour because you're getting one fish, an outlier fish. They're not coming together to begin that feeding activity. And a lot of that is also during that summer period of August, you also have spawning conditions for other forage species, right? Basically, their natural resources for what they feed. Come September and October, they don't. The forage becomes a little bit scarcer. Now, where do you think the forage is right now? Okay. Like, they're going to have to start to move, okay, to locate the forage now. All right. And that's what's going to happen. That's the second window. Okay. And they're going to so what happens in that transition period? Okay. In that transitioning, they're feeding up while they're moving to deeper water. Okay. Now, what can we liken this to? All right. Now, I don't know about you, but I pretty much grew up in a farming community. Okay. And spent my summers on the farm. All right. And if you've ever sat there, and watched, Angus beef, Holstein dairy cows, or whatever out in the pasture, where are they moving towards? The greener grass, right? Like, it's the same thing. They transition from the trough, okay, where they're guaranteed food, okay, to where they transition back out into the pasture. Horses are the same way, okay? They transition back out to where the greener grass is. Fish are no different. They're going to transition, but while they're transitioning to that deeper water that they want to be in come late November, December, when the water temperatures are really dropping, okay, they're going to be feeding up. And they're going to be doing this in pods of 5, 6, 4, 5, 6 typically, at least in my river. Okay, and you can see them. If your water is clear enough, the best indication is you just pull out to where you are, not do anything, sit in your kayak, and just wait. And eventually, you're going to look down and you're going to see 4 or 5 of them swim under your kayak and move around because they're out roaming. Okay, and you haven't done anything. You're just sitting there. All right, and you're looking at maybe you're looking at your graph, or maybe you don't have a graph, and you're just being patient. And eventually, if your water's clear and you can look, see 5 yards on any side around your kayak, you're going to see those smallmouth. Okay, every time, because they're out moving around. And you moving into that space, moving into that water, moving into that area, you've disturbed what? You've disturbed the bait fish. Not so much the smallmouth, but you've moved the bait fish. And once all those bait fish start moving around and start doing their thing, the smallmouth are attracted to them. Okay. So my point is, a lot of people don't give it enough time. Okay. In terms of playing that waiting game, they're moving on. They're fishing so fast that they're missing that opportunity, especially, unless of course they've hit the pot, the pot luck, and they've come onto a bait ball like the guys on the lakes, and they could just sit there and just cherry pick. You know what I mean? Because they found it, and they found the shad, they found the herring, they found what they needed to find, and then now it's just game on, right? But in a lot of our river systems, that's not the case. A lot of times, they're scattered out, and when you find them, that's how you have to basically, play that. But in the fall, smallmouth still want to have that stable environment. Okay, it's not like the summertime where everything's kind of it's beautiful. The rivers roll in, the currents roll in, the water's clear. It's what I mean, and they can see everything and hear everything and all that stuff. It's not the same way in the fall. Okay, they're not moving. They're in terms of their metabolic rate, in terms of all that stuff. It's you want to find that out. Okay. So when you're looking at that, again, if it's less, in terms of tournament angling, is different, okay? Especially if you're only going to a place once a year, right? But for your local river system, a river that you're fishing week in and week out or every month, right? You should begin to diagnose your river systems in terms of where, these transition zones are. The transition to the spawning flats, and then where they go after the spawn. They're transitioning where? Okay, shallow water, right? And cover and rock. Okay, then they're transitioning again late summer, early fall. Where are they transitioning to? Knowing, identifying where your deep water is. Okay, and again, deep water is subjective. Okay, because the average, the gauge can tell you that the river is 3 feet, but if you find something that's 4 feet, that's deep water, right? As far as a fish is concerned. All right. They're going to find that depression, under a ledge, for example, that always seems to exist. Right. They're going to find that wherever it could be a subtle deviation in your river composition. That's where they're going to be. And so I'm going to do a video here on the JL Scott Fishing Channel for my river. And I'm going to actually identify where the deeper fall holes are, the holes that I fish on the upper Potomac. Okay. So you can actually learn and understand and figure out where they're located. Right. And then you'll be able to tie that into the spring, right? Because they're going to be there. Okay. From late November, December, January, and then some point in February, hopefully, or March, definitely by March, they're going to move out of there. And then you're going to find that when they move out, you're going to know where they are, hunkered down. And then you're going to be able to identify their transition zone to the next spring pattern, okay? And then you're going to be able to find them in the middle river, okay? And some shallow, but off points, island points, and in the middle river. And then you're going to be able to watch them move to their spawning areas. And then you're going to be able to track them after the spawn, where they're going to go. And that's why you work this whole radius in your fishery, of where you fish predominantly. It doesn't mean you're not going to explore new water or anything like that, or you're going to go and fish new water. Of course, you're going to do that. But when you're predominantly fishing a certain section of your river, you're going to get dialed into that river and that whole cycle of what they do. Smallies will move. Whatever anybody tells you about this, to me, it baffles me. Because if you're out on the river, I know if you're out on the river as much as people like Troy are, or Chun, or people like that, these fish move 10 to 12 miles like they do. The smallies do. Unless there's dams that are restricting their movement, they're going to move. And you can see that. If you plot your catches throughout the year, you're going to see that. Like, it's not a coincidence. You're fishing the same areas, but then you're going to notice that how come in the fall I'm catching all my big fish and my fish here, but in the spring and summer I don't catch hardly any fish there. I catch them upriver 1.5 miles, on the opposite bank, right? That's the stuff you want to document. Okay, you want to basically be able to like lock and load. Where, and if you're using the Attorney X app and you've got your GPS coordinates and you got all that, your location and all that stuff, you can kind of track it in your live well, and you can kind of just see like, okay, if you don't have a good memory in terms of, if you're catching a ton of fish, but we're all pretty good at freaking figuring out the good areas, right? But it's amazing to me when I see so many people go right by the really good areas, at least on my river and on the main stem of the Shenandoah, where I grew up fishing. It amazes me that people will, you just let other people, give them the right of way. That's what I say. It's like, you got the right of way. If they find it, they find it. But if they don't, then, let them move. Let them move on and then move in. That's kind of like always been my philosophy. It's like, it amazes to me, like, people will just pass right by areas where I've caught really numbers and really good size smallmouth, because it doesn't look like it would be a sweet spot. Okay. It just doesn't look like it would be, right? But yet they're there. Okay. So, diagnosing why they are there helps you find them throughout the year. Here was the bottoms up. I'm going to show you this. This is one of my favorites, actually. I don't think these open it. Pretty sure I can open these up. Again, big time trend, just like the fish roller. This one is the Frisch 3.5 inch from bottom up. These are beautiful. They're really thin and streamlined, just like your bait fish. Okay. They don't have nearly as many colors as, Raid of Japan has or Jackal has with the rhythm. I think I might have a rhythm wave here. Hold on. No, I got the Peacetown shad and the eye shad. But yeah, you can see that this team tends to be like, obviously the boot has been kind of like, I'm not gonna say it's been usurped by the split tail, but this year's definitely been the year of the split tail in terms of a lot of people's preferences. A lot of people that hit me up and ask me if I can get them some baits from Japan, and obviously you get, like I said before, good luck trying to find the 4-inch Sakamata shad if you don't know somebody. But you can certainly go with the 5 or the 6, believe it or not. I'm going to keep my 4-inch Sakamata shad inventory kind of on the down low. Because a lot of guys who usually fishing the BFLs or fishing the Toyota series will hit me up, and that's kind of what happened this year. But hopefully they're going to come back. Most of you guys know about basically like the tsunami effect of Japan this last year and how it's impacted production and impacted availability for a lot of soft plastics. Not all the Japanese bait makers, believe it or not, are in-house bait manufacturers. They're not all like Duo or Megabass. A lot of the Japanese bait manufacturers are kind of centralized manufacturing in one location with multiple brands, and that's basically how it got impacted this year. in terms of productions, which is why you've seen this year those the inventory levels and unavailability levels, even at your top shops, have just been impacted, and they will continue to be impacted probably until March. That's not to say that that someone's not going to get some, here or there. But in terms of big drops of the Shakamatsu, the 4 ounce, if you notice, like the 2.5, guys, I've got a couple of the 2.5. I didn't bring them up because I like to focus on a lot of baits that people are less familiar with. Most people are familiar with depths. If you think these baits were small that I said that were like a 2.6, that 2.5 Shakamatsu shad is like literally this big. Like it's ridiculous. It's ridiculously tiny. So you're going to be putting it on a small one, like you're going to be putting it on a tiny little micro spin. I will say this though, I did catch a few smallmouth on that, and on the Monocacy River using the beetle spin. So most people, if you're my age, I just celebrated a birthday, so I'm just getting old. But I grew up with the beetle spin more or less, and on the Shenandoah and the Potomac, and I just took off the beetle. You can buy the beetle spins for like $1 or $2, whatever it is. You can find them everywhere. And I just took that little black with the little yellow eye right off, and then put the Shakamatsu shad on there with the little beetle spin, and just waited out in the middle of the river and friggin' like ripped it out. And it was like a 15, 16 smallmouth morning on the Monocacy, because it's something they hadn't seen. I mean, the beetle spin's always effective. I just have never really liked the soft plastics. They're always more like crappy kind of like all chartreuse and all black. But you certainly can use a lot of these micro baits and micro finesse baits on the beetle spin. Or you can go to Bass Pro Shops, for example. I'm not sure, the small tackle shops might not have it, but if you go in Bass Pro Shops and you go down the aisle, you'll find the spinners that you can just put on. So what I literally could do is I could take this off, and I could put one of the spinners on top and have it be a top spin. Okay. Easy. Get a gold blade or silver blade. Take this blade off if I don't want to do the underspin. Okay. And I'll put a top spin on there, just like a first gen top spin. I usually use the first gen. It's a little bit bigger than the beetle spin because it's got that jig head and also has a heavy duty. That's mine, kind of like my go-to when I want a small profile, but I want a blade because I want some flash. But you certainly can do that with your underspin. Just take the blade off and then put one of the top spins. Bass Pro Shops has them. Lure Net probably has them. They're basically just the wire and the blade, and you can just create yourself a top spin jig head. Makes it really easy. Here's the bull hog. Like I said before, a lot of these baits from Japan, have been copied by our manufacturers, for sure. A lot of them haven't been yet. But there are some. If you notice, this looks eerily similar to the bait I showed you earlier. Okay? All right? Basically the same thing. Same thing happens in Japan, guys. Okay? With the terms of what gets hot, what gets used, what can be marketed to North America. You just got to find the ones. I like this one a little bit. I'll tell you why. This is the Bull's Hog 3-inch from bottom up, okay? Look at the head difference on this. See how it goes in and then goes out, and it's got this little rib right here on the front. It just has a different action to it, but the baits look so familiar from here down, okay? This flap looks identical, okay, between the one I showed you earlier and then bottom up. But what I like about that head, I like the head with bottom up, but also like their colors. Okay. And so it's just a thing that you can look at. Price ranges are about the same. Probably the average for most of these soft plastics, typically you're going to find them probably from $10.99 to $12.99. For me, they're, I usually let people go and get them to people for like $8.99, $7.99 if someone wants to buy one. But that's just what we're about. And then that was the bull hog, and obviously the fresh 3.5 inch. Love bottom up. The one I didn't mention before when I was talking about the smelt head and I was talking about Horizon's head, it's also one of the really popular right now. Coming out of Japan, it's probably sold out. It's probably still sold out at most places. There are a few places you could probably get it. If you message me, I'll let you know. Is the Bay Rough BR head. Comes in various sizes. It's sort of, I don't consider this to be a stroller. It's marketed as such, kind of presented as much to a couple guys, but in a couple different people on videos that I've seen. To me, it's not like the core tackle hover rig. It's not like the bent rod hover rig. It's completely different. Okay. You certainly can try. You certainly can use it for forward facing sonar, and I know people probably have, especially when a lot of the other type of terminal tackle was unavailable. When they had a run on all the BFS, Finesse, hover strolling baits, soft plastics, and terminal tackle. But you can kind of see, this is like a really, really kind of different. It's basically sticks out about 1/8 of an inch, okay, on both sides of the jig head. And so it gets down, it creates a lot different. For me, I like this on the bottom. Like I'm not mid-strolling it. But I guess you certainly can. This one's a 3 gram 1/0, number one. And then they do it to where they've got their own line paired specifically for this. You certainly can use other soft plastics, but this one lines up the best. I think you'll take that one out now. And this is a 3.3. And the cool thing that you're going to find with a lot more of the Japanese baits, I think Guggen's probably done a pretty good job here in the States with a lot of their stuff. I don't know if, let me see if I got it. Oh, wait, I do have some Guggen. Let me see if they've got it on here. They will do a really good job with some of their packages. If anybody wants any of these Kraken Junior crawls, if you like these, just hit me up, man. I got a whole freaking case, a whole box of these, probably like 48 count. The Kraken 3, the Junior and the regular Kraken, is they give you that on the back. They give you basically the perfect ways to rig and the different ways to rig it up. So you certainly don't have to use this on the head, okay? It's recommended for that because it's basically made for that. But you certainly can do quite a few different other presentations. So that's what I like about a lot of the Japanese manufacturers. They do that. And it's just really, really cool because it gives you kind of a different perspective of how you can present the same bait kind of different ways. Once you get that color dialed in, that's basically what I'm concerned the most for is getting that dialed in and then going from there. And the only one I didn't mention, I'll probably do a separate video altogether, is the drift fry. That's Jackal. That's a much bigger bait. If you're from Virginia, these are perfect for hunting run, perfect for Lake Anna, perfect for your deeper reservoirs. The river's not this size. It's a 5.2. If they become back available, the Revoltage is probably a better in the split tail. The Revoltage is a split tail. This isn't a split tail. Is much. I think the Revoltage is much better for river anglers for river bassin. But certainly doesn't mean you can't get bit. With the drift fry. I just think it's better, deeper. Fishing reservoirs for sure in Virginia and Seneca Lake in Germantown and Jennings Randolph, another one up in Western Virginia, Liberty Reservoir in Central Maryland. Like I said, Anna, trying to remember. We're one of the guys. The guy, I think, guys at Holiday. I think he said they got a 5-pound largemouth at Holiday. I can't remember. It's in Western Virginia, northwestern Virginia. I think it was Lake Holiday. It wasn't a big public lake, but anyway, he caught like a 5.5-pound largemouth with a drift fry. So that's pretty cool for that, and that's really it. That's really what I got with the soft plastics. I mean, I can still go into tons with. Oh, actually, I know what I want to do. I want to show you this. I want to show you the craze. I don't know how I feel about this craze, but man, you know, all the young bucks are doing it. They love it. It was right there. The old G-Crack style. Okay. I think the Bellows has probably come back into stock now. I think G-Crack was going to have their inventory back up for October. It was supposed to come in. You're probably going to see it come in. That's pretty much the best size, to be honest. Again, see that cream color bottom? Get the cream color bottom. Top color, go with it. Go with your natural. Go with your cinnamon blue flake. Go with your natural browns or green pumpkins. The green chartreuse. Always go with that creamy bottom. And that size is really like that 3-inch or less. I think it's 3.3, but that 3 inches is a sweet spot. Now, you can go to the big boy. You certainly can go to the big boy. All right. And again, this is strictly for me, drop and go, just like the tube. Drop it in like right now, this time of year. You're coming across them in the river. You're finding your deeper water. It's a foot and a half, 2 feet deeper. The middle of the river's 3 feet in my river, and then you find that hole or that pool that's 4 feet, 5 feet deep. Come November, that's where they're going to be, and you're just going to drop this down, let it fall to the bottom. Okay, let it sit on the bottom. Okay, let it sit, and then just twitch your rod. Okay, and this is basically how that's going to work. Now, there are some guys that are rigging it wacky style. Okay, they're doing that. You know, there's some crazy stuff out there. You could probably find it and do a search on YouTube. But basically, you want to find it under G-Crack Bellows. And then there are a couple other brands that kind of knocked it off, you know, in the States. And I think the pours are now out, available now from the mold companies in America. So there's probably a lot of custom guys that have some pretty cool. They're probably all the same. It's probably the same style based on the mold. And you can find that readily available online. I'm going to have some cast again tubes. I'm going to do a video for the cast again tubes coming. We can talk about the salty tubes, and we'll talk about tubes coming up. I'll be out on the water. I'm going to do a lot more of that stuff, hopefully, coming up now that it's just so nice outside. I'm loving this weather for the next couple days. So I'm going to try and be out, try to do a little bit more on the water, a little bit more. Like I said, I'm going to do the video on the JL Scott Fishing page from my river in terms of where I go, where I launch from, where I go, where I target smallies, where the holes are, where the ledges are, where the seams typically are. I'm going to identify all that on a stream with the map. So it'll give you a good idea how to break down each section this fall for either fishing in the fall or in the spring. And I'm going to start with my river for the Potomac, and hopefully I'll get to the main stem before the new year. And then as we get into the new year and into spring, I'll do a lot of the other river systems that I love to fish and that I personally have experience on. And then I'll defer and let some other people do some of their sections that they prefer. Again, this is not from a tournament angling perspective. This is from an educational perspective. A lot of this, once you get this dialed in, you can read your river. You're going to be able to go to other rivers and read those rivers as well. You got to do, like everything else, you just got to do the work. And it really, really just starts with understanding smallie behavior. So I would recommend hitting this up right here and joining the newsletter. You can at least join the free newsletter and see if you're getting anything out of it. And then you can go to the premium level. And the premium level, you know, like, Jay, what's that? What's a premium level? What do you get? Well, the difference is you're going to get baits. You're going to get baits like this, okay, that you're not going to find at tackle shops in the States for the most part. You may be able to find them online in a couple, but you're not going to be able to find them at tackle shops near you, and they're going to come delivered right to your door. Okay. So that's part of the premium subscription is we send out baits every single month. Custom baits and Japanese JDM baits primarily. Try to stay away. If someone's looking for something in particular because they haven't been able to find it, that's a subscriber, I'll do my best to try and locate, some of the branded baits. We kind of want to steer. We want to get people into some new baits, so when you get out on your river system, you're not fishing what everybody else is fishing, okay? But you're fishing something that your smallmouth have never seen. And for most of the guys that are watching this, that watch my channel or watch the Smallie Chaser channel, most of you guys are dialed in. Most of you guys know these manufacturers, know these brands. And so like tonight, like Valley Hill, BR, okay, from Duo. Obviously most people are familiar with Jackal, Bottom Up, all right, Raid, Adusta. If you're not familiar with those brands, your smallmouth aren't familiar with them either, okay? And that is the biggest lesson there is like opening yourself up. Don't do what everybody else is doing, okay? Take what everybody else is doing from an educational standpoint. And then, like I was saying before, I got a couple of messages today about the Whopper Plopper and the River to the Sea. And is this, and there's like this Lake Edge Whopper Plopper, okay, is a flat side Whopper Plopper, okay? It's not like the River to Sea. The River to Sea has a bigger belly, has a different displacement of water. This is a more refined, more the trajectory. It has its challenges because of its weight. But if you go with a buoyant line, okay, definitely go with, if you go with a copilot or buoyant line, like a P line topwater, that's the number one. With fluorocarbon, sometimes it can roll, okay, depending, Seagar can make it roll sometimes. But once you get your line dialed in right for the flat side Whopper Ploppers, it's just, again, it's a different sound, okay, and presentation that your smallies aren't used to seeing. That's what makes these baits phenomenal fish catchers. And at some point, maybe your fish are going to get, are going to get conditioned to your baits. But again, and that's where it's an evolution, okay? And it's a transition you got to make in terms of giving them something different at different times of the year. But again, like I said in the beginning, keeping your color kind of uniform, okay, throughout within your soft plastics, your hard baits, okay, keeping that, matching that forage in your fishery. You can get hard baits. You can have Whopper Ploppers painted. One of my favorite, like most people I know that are probably from the main stem Shenandoah up to Pennsylvania and New York-ish, maybe over into Ohio, and in some of the Virginia fisheries, that shad shiner, like top brown gold, that is the sweet spot, right? And so this particular color pattern is a thread fin. Okay, it's a Tennessee shad. I was like, or thread fin, but it's a Tennessee shad, right? But it's like a golden shiner. It's like all the shiners and all the bait fish that are in multiple rivers that I fish. And then I've got a square bill, a jerk bait, okay, that match the same color. So depending on what the preference is right now, I expect in the next couple days, okay, if you're going to start out with some hard baits, you're going to start out with crankbaits. I'm going to talk about this in the video tomorrow of all the crankbaits, and I'll talk about this bait tomorrow. Swim baits, if they're moving up into those creeks and they're chasing the bait fish up in those creeks, by all means, that's when you want to go you want to go up in there with that swim bait, with that chatterbait, with that Whopper Plopper, with that spinnerbait, right? No doubt. Okay. But when that stops working and slows down, okay, then is when you get back to a little bit more finesse. Okay. Hold on one second. I got you right here. Trev, hold on one second. How those underspins from Thomas Custom? Dude, those freaking things are sick, man. My two favorite underspins. Look, there's a bunch of underspins you can get. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and say that there's not. There's, Dirty Jigs, obviously, is probably the most well-known because of Tactical Bassin, okay? And you can probably get those at Tackle Warehouse, okay? 6 Cents got an underspin. There's underspins. Brazalo's got underspins, I think. There's a bunch of underspins on the market. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's that technical in terms of the head and the blade, but I'm telling you, there's something different when you hybridize your presentation to where you're rolling with a hair jig style underspin. And then you're matching it with a 2.5. I wouldn't go over 3, but a 2.5 soft plastic, okay? Right? And so I'm going to match that up, right? So I've got a little bit more of that compact profile, a little bit more weight, okay? And you can diagnose that in your fishery, Trevor. Like if you're finding like you're getting too close to your smallmouth or that's when I like to add the soft plastic because I can actually unleash this thing 20 yards further, okay? And so that allows you to be a little bit offset from that seam, and you can work that seam and run this spin. I love to work, like right now it's a little bit tough because of you can't see anything. And that's what I was saying before. If you're consistently fishing your river, then you know where the grass lines are, okay? So it doesn't matter for me going out tomorrow morning and my river is basically, still freaking brown, okay? Not chocolate milk, but not clear. I know where the grass lines are because I've fished the river all the time, right? And so I can still run this along, reasonably where I think that grass line is. Now, whether or not that grass line in a lot of our river systems just got annihilated and taken out and sent down river, that's what we need to find out once our rivers start to clear up a little bit, especially those down in Virginia. But that's what I do is I'll run it straight, same way if I'm in the upper bay and it's all grass, inside and outside grass lines. I apply that to shallow water where I know the grass is, and I just run the underspin the same way I would. I do not fish, and this is going to sound pretty crazy to people. They're probably going to think I'm lost my mind. I do not fish a bladed jig any different than I fish a vibrating jig. I don't. A lipless crankbait. I don't fish it any different than a lipless crankbait. Sorry, not a vibrating jig. A lipless crankbait. I fish the exact same way, run the grass line, run the seam. And I just make sure that I'm using the right kinds. Okay. I want that. I want a nice kind of natural color head. And then I want natural colors. I want colors that are going to pop. Like this isn't an everyday. I'll be honest. This isn't an everyday. The solid chartreuse one is not an everyday kind of like color for me. It's a very unique, certain times, certain window colors on certain times of year. But these darker ones are absolutely, 24/7, 7 days a week. Like, I mean, all year long. They're natural colors. They work. And she's got a ton, and Melissa will tie you up whatever you want to match whatever you got in any fishery. She custom did the series a dozen for prize packs. So it's like, they're all over the place. Let me grab another one of these real quick since we're talking about it. Let me see what we got in here. Like for the winter time, I can tell you right now, like growing up in Virginia, you really can't beat a black hair jig. And then she's got so look at that. Solid black, gold style, and then your blade. Like, you can't beat a black hair jig in the wintertime. I'm talking about the wintertime, not right now necessarily, although they do work. But when you get into December, January, early February, black hair jig. Well, I don't care if you're in a reservoir in Virginia or Maryland or in your river system. They love a black hair jig during that time of year. And again, here's another one that's just like I got some black in there. She put some black in there. So that definitely mirrors so much of the forage species that you're going to find. And then we go crazy, man. then we go crazy. What are we going to do? What are we going to do without a pink one, right? You know what I mean? Your morning dawn, kind of morning dawn color. Like, again, all this stuff is just you kind of learn and dial in. And like I said, I go with the 1/4 ounce. Some people like to go with the 1/2 ounce. And the only reason why I go with the 1/4 ounce, guys, is because I want to have that functionality and flexibility to go with a trailer. I could put a crawl in the back. I could put, like I said, this is a 6 cents. Like I said before, an Excite baits. They're awesome. You can put on there. Tactical Fishing Company, one of the partners, Bent Rod. They've got some great split tails that you could put on there. I think Andrew's got the ballistic shad. All those. And if you need to, you can have just like cut a 1/4 of an inch off if you want to make it a little bit smaller to get that right size. But that's really like, what it really is. Let me see what you got. Tennessee shad, a good one to throw. Yep. Yeah. I mean, Tennessee shad, natural shiner, emerald shiner, and the Susky for the people going up on the 19th, because that bait fish is still kind of pretty active. And then those colors, obviously the golds, browns, cream golds, browns, and a spinnerbait, chatterbait, tend to be, at least for me anyway. And for the people I've talked to, tend to be the most effective, in like places like the Susquehanna, for sure. But Melissa can set you up. She's got it all. She can do chatterbaits this way. She can do chatterbaits. I think she's doing some spinnerbaits too. I usually really like the spinnerbaits from John at Snagler Tackle. I always pick them up at the expo. Adam White, who's kind of here in the chat, we always hit the expo up in Richmond. You should join us. Anyone who's watching this, it's in January, I think, this year again, 16 to 19, something like that. It's like 2 or 3 days. Should make that trip if you're from Virginia. Great soft plastic, great Helgramite, great tubes, and great spinnerbaits. The Thumper spinnerbaits are my favorite. The natural series Thumpers from John at Snagler Tackle. Not a big fan of his website, but it is what it is. You can always send him a message and tell him what you're looking for. Not everybody's got the time to build out these crazy, sick, functional, websites, that are small businesses. But if you catch up with them at the expo, you'll see them all. And then the other underspin, I don't think I had it out yet because I didn't bring it up because I actually had 2 of them get smashed. So I lost my blades on the bottom of the underspin, and that's Mike's underspins from MES Lures. They've had some health issues in their family. I see them at the shows every year. I'm hoping to catch back up with them again in January. Like I said, Adam and I kind of like get their baits a lot at the shows because they're just, they're inexpensive relative to what you get, the quality that you get, and compared to other brands, and they just catch fish. And that's he's got underspins, jigs. His jigs are really, really cool. And then he's got tons of frogs. I'm not a big frog guy, but he's got tons of frogs too. But that's really all I got for you guys. If anybody's got anybody have any questions? Hey, Adam, if you're still on, Trev's asking you about the James. I can tell you, depends on what James you're talking about. If you're talking about the city of Richmond, the James, yeah, it's a shit show. It always is. It's always days later. It's always 5. Most people don't forget, I lived in Richmond for like most of my life. Even though I grew up in Loudon, I moved to Richmond in like 1982. So I pretty much learned how to worming with Woo. I learned how to fish freaking worms from Woo Daves, okay, from Chester, Virginia. That's how old I am. And grew up fishing that river. And that river always lags 5 to 6 to 7 days behind the Upper James because the water just comes down the mountain, Upper James, Middle James, then hits the fall line in Richmond, and then crashes because everything below the fall line is largemouth and tidal. Okay, so it's coming this way. Okay, and then everything from the Upper James is coming this way, and at the fall line, they crash. So everything for like a mile or 2 to 3 miles through the city, which is, if I'm not mistaken, is the only city in the entire country that can have a class 4 or 5 rapid run through the city. Okay, Richmond used to flood when I was a kid all the time. Okay. They got a big flood wall now. Kind of done its job, for the last decade and a half to 20 years, I guess. Doesn't mean they still don't get water down there in the bottom, Shockoe Bottom, but it's a lot better than it was in the 70s and 80s. That place used to flood all the time, and it was just bad because all that water comes down, and that's what happened. I think Troy said he saw somewhere where the gauge was 25, 26 feet. When I was looking at it, was like 17, 18, 19 feet is what they thought it was going to be. That's a lot of water in there as it narrows down through the pony pasture and then down onto where Adam lives. So let's see. Adam just got in there. Hold on one second. Boom. Here you go. Here's your answer from Adam. Boom. She's finally down, but she's pretty dirty. Haven't gotten out because it's running pretty fast. Didn't get out by today to check it out. Family stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, again, guys, this weekend, always keep that in mind. 5-river watershed showdown event. You got 5 rivers, 6 rivers, 5+1. It's 5+1 to choose from. And just because the water level, when you look at that gauge and the gauge says 4 feet, you got to remember, in the back of your mind, you got to be saying, okay, 4 feet, and look at the flow. Okay. And when you get out there to the ramp, look at the flow of the water and be able to make a really good decision in terms of your safety, okay? Because not all the rivers are the same. Some of the rivers are 2.5 feet, but that doesn't mean they're not rolling pretty good, I think the Rapidan, the Ravenna are pretty good. Parts of the James are really good, and then other parts of the James, the further east you get, tend to be a lot worse now because for a week now, all the water has been going down towards Richmond. Trev, the Roanoke better than anybody in our community. So I'll leave you to that. And then the Dan and the Stanton have kind of been what they've been, hitting into the lake. So we'll see what happens. We got 3 more days. Yeah, 3 more days until the weekend, and 2 days of fishing on the weekend. So, hopefully you guys can take a little bit away from what I talked about tonight with finesse fishing. It's just kind of like the beginning. I've literally got like 5-6 more boxes of baits that I haven't even unpacked yet. And so as I build this out, and then I'll invite you guys into the shop. You know what I mean? And people can be able to try some of these baits out, get them in their hands. It's going to be a lot of fun. Nothing better than learning about a new bait and fishing something different than that nobody else is fishing. Or when you're coming off the water, or you're out there and you're catching fish and nobody else is catching fish, and ultimately they want to know what you're throwing, so you go the entire different direction. Trust me. It happens. I'm sure Troy's hiding his baits, on the ends of his rods a lot of times when he goes out. I will pull that up. Let's see. I think I pulled it up before. Yeah, Fall Brawl's up at the bottom. And it looks like some guys caught some fish today. So I'm going to score these fish, and I'll get that updated. I'll do another video Friday, maybe tomorrow night. That's just for the series in terms of the 5-river event. Update the river levels. Update any ramp closures. I don't think there are going to be any. I think we removed the rivers that have the closures. So it's going to be really, really cool to see what happens. I think by the weekend, Trev, 4 of the 6 rivers are going to be perfect. I mean, for catching a lot of fish. Now, obviously, as it goes, the way it always is this is usually the time of year we catch the big ones. But we'll see what's going on with the aftermath of Helene and just the pressure and the water temperature. Like some of the rivers are the water temperatures are 8 to 10 degrees difference, and that's going to come into play. Not just the water clarity, but also that water temperature and where the behavioral stuff is going to be for the transition. I would not be surprised if we don't have some rivers where the bass are transitioning already, based on the water temperatures at like 61. falling to 60, 59, that they begin to make that move to the deeper water. Whereas a river system 25, 30, 40 miles away, maybe at 67, 68, and they haven't begun to make that move yet. So, I mean, that's really just one of the beautiful things about river fishing is every time we go out there, the river's completely different. I don't care what anybody says. It's like fishing a new river every single time. And that's what I love about it. That's why, I mean, I've got some really great lakes. I know you guys got some great lakes down there. Lakes are just boring to me. They just are. I mean, because they looked exactly the same every time I go there. And I got a really good one right up the road that's got 6, 7, 8 pound largemouth in it, like consistently. Still one of the most pressured lakes in all of Maryland, but still guys on that grass be slamming them in that lake. And it's fun when you're on, but you know, I don't get nothing motivates me more than wanting to go out and chase some smallies in the river as opposed to going up the road 15 minutes to the lake. You know, fishing for largemouth. Nothing against those guys. I mean, they got their own juice. They got their own adrenaline when it comes to that. It's just that they're wired that way. I just think most of us are wired river bassin and wired for smallies. And there's just something about it. There's just something about being connected to a river. When you're out there, it's a shame that we've seen what we've seen the last few weeks happen to our river systems as well as the people. You know, I don't know, Adam. I'm not sure exactly I follow with that. Hold on one second. Not sure I'm following you. Let's see. I will put that up there. 122-ounce jigs would travel 40 yards before it hit the ground. That was 4 days ago. Oh, gotcha. Now I understand. Half ounce. I know what you meant. But yeah, I mean, you know, and then obviously that flow and that seam is everything. Like, you know, whatever that flow is, it determines your weight, determines the weight. You know, most people, for some reason, I talk to, at least at my ramp, I don't know, you guys can let me know when I see you guys, if you guys are any different when you're talking to guys down your way, is for some reason they don't think they can finesse fish when the current's moving. It's like they feel like they have to, like, you know, and I'm just like, I'm always like, dude, just add a little bit more weight. That's why it's one thing that's really great about these smelt heads is they come in like freaking like 8 different sizes. Okay. And so again, you could just change the weight up, you know, not only to adjust your fall rate, but also to get you, you know, in terms of you're in that current, if that current is kind of running a little bit above normal, I just will go up. That's why I always start at a quarter ounce. A lot of my finesse stuff, I'll do an 1/8 of an ounce. I'll do an 1/8 ounce, quarter ounce is usually as high as I go. If I'm going to a half ounce, it's usually in the winter time, you know, or rising water, you know, or I want to get distance, you know what I mean? You know, and so that's kind of how I attack it on that route. Same, ain't no jet skis on a river. That's a good point. That is a good point. You know, although I will say this, it is actually, it's not too bad between Labor Day and spring, you know, like on a lot of the rivers. I mean, a lot of the lakes, at least around Virginia, I mean, you know, like Lake Anna's not nearly as bad in the fall as it is in the spring and summer. It's horrible. You know, I think at Kerr Lake in Maryland is like that too. It's a great time to go fish, go up there and stay for like the weekend, get into some fish, a whole bunch of different fish, multi-species when you go up to Kerr. I'm sorry, not Kerr. Deep Creek. Kerr could probably be the same way down in Virginia, but Deep Creek is that way in Maryland. And you know, there's not the pleasure boats, there's not the jet skis, there's not all that stuff when you're in October, November, December, and January. So it's a good time to go. You know, if the weather obviously, you know, works out. You got two. What you send there? Throw a tube in the current and let the current do the work. Yeah, man. That's it. That's really the only thing you got to dial in with that. Like, you know, like I said, a lot of people you talk tube is very like old school, right? It's not sexy. Okay. Let's be honest. And so a lot of people don't have the patience for it. But if you adjust that weight, you know, I love just like the other thing I probably do in terms of finesse I didn't talk about because I didn't really break any of them out is flukes, nose hook and flukes, and let the current just do everything it wants with it because nothing imitates a distressed bait fish than a nosed hook fluke just getting beat around in the seam or in the current, right? You don't need to do anything. Okay. Same with the tube. In the right time, different times of the year. Your water depth comes into play here when we're talking about tubes. So obviously people need to change up. If they're fishing in 2 feet of water and they're throwing a tube, you want to go light, extra light. You don't want to be throwing, heavier jig heads or heavier weights or however it's being presented. You want to go real light because you want that fall to be slow. You don't want that fall to be fast. Okay. Especially if they're not really active. So, I tend to like to go during when my river is 2.5 feet or less. I tend to like to go with a fatter tube, like a fatter head tube than the normal, like really thin plastic, smaller tubes. Because that fatter tube head, it does kind of like just give it a different fall rate, and they can see it in that strike zone longer. It's kind of what I'm getting at, as opposed to like if I'm going out and I find 4 or 5 or 6 feet of water, which if you're above the dam where I fish, yeah, you're going to find 6 and 8 feet of water. I can go ahead and do whatever I want to do. It's not a problem. You can just let it go and you can just work it however you want to work it. The same as if you were fishing. I look at it the same as I was fishing a jig on the bottom. Just got to be patient with it. Adam says he's throwing the current. What I fish? Yes, I fish sometimes with the tube. So now in the winter. Yep. Yeah. It's a year-round bait, man. It's a year-round bait because they love it. You know what I mean? It's an easy meal for them on the bottom. They don't have to chase it, right? That's what you want to, when their metabolic rate changes and they no longer want to chase, okay? This is why what's critical for 2025, when we start this series in the newsletter, and I'm break all this stuff down, how to attack it and approach it and be tactical about it, is like, once you figure out throughout the year your topography of your river system and what happens, never leave your river alone, guys. Like, don't let your river go a month without you seeing it, okay? Get out there, and even if you're out there and you only catch one fish or you don't catch any fish, learn something, right? And that's what you want to be able to apply it, because it's going to come back and reward you later in the season. Okay, like right now, I already know where my top 6 deep water areas that hold smallmouth in November and December are. And it's just a matter of when they get there. And whether or not anything that happened with Helene impacts where they are right now. Because remember, we don't know. You take the New River, for example, from Radford to Narrows, okay? We don't know the displacement ratio of what happened to the smallmouth that occupy that section. That's a pretty big section. Will they return to the ledges? Did they get flushed downriver? We don't really know, right? So then it becomes a dance where you're going to be going to your ledges and going to your holes expecting your bass to be there, and they're not there. And it's not because they're not there because they don't want to necessarily be there. It may be because Helene moved them 4, 5, 6 miles downriver, and it may take them, if they have this ability. A lot of people don't think fish are smart, but if they have the ability to work their way back, or they just have no memory and occupy where they are, and you got to find them again. I mean, that's going to be the biggest thing. Yep. Great Lakes. We're going to have some Great Lakes Finesse. I actually got a box of Great Lakes Finesse. Haven't even opened up yet. So I got a box of that, and I got a box of Excite baits. Haven't even opened up yet. So I think we got all the new line. I got all the new Great Lakes Finesse terminal tackle and baits, and I also got all the new Finesse stealth baits from Exxon that I haven't even opened up yet, and some Excite baits. So I haven't even gotten those out on the water. I fished with Great Lakes before, Trev, but there's a lot of their baits I haven't even gotten out on the water yet. And so I just have a hard time coming on and talking about them if I haven't fished with them. But they are solid. You know what I mean? And they're Smallie sticks. And you can take a lot about what those guys have done on the lakes for Smallies, whether it be Erie or Clare or, any of that stuff up there, and take that and kind of transition that to the river for sure. In different ways, especially finesse fishing. They got a great jig. I think they've got an underspin too. I mean, I'll check that box and get back to you, but I'm pretty sure that they've got the underspin along with their jig head for their new offerings. I'm trying to remember from iCast whether or not they had an underspin or not. I'll have to check it. But yeah, it's always great to check out. You know, it's always great to be out there, and you just got to be disciplined about it. I mean, my biggest recommendation to people is, you know, obviously take your confidence bait, but every time you go out, take 3-4 baits that you've never thrown before, that have just been sitting in your tackle box, and just give it a go. Otherwise, why is it there, right? Clean out your tackle box and get new shit. That's what I tell people. It's like, why, you know, I mean, if you go with your buddy and you're on your boat and he never freaking ever fishes 90% of the shit in his tackle box, why is it in his tackle box? Get rid of it. Donate that shit to a kid who's just learning how to fish, and go out and buy a whole bunch of new stuff and start all over. Because there's really no point in you taking it out there if, you know what I mean, if you're not actually ever going to use it, because you only have 5 baits that you use all the time. And if those 5 baits work for you, that's fine. But it always fascinates me, you know. But if you don't take the baits with you, you're never going to throw them. And so that's what I always like to do, is always make sure I want to take 2 or 3 brand new baits with me every time I go. And for me, it's easy because baits are coming to my place freaking every other day as we build this stuff out. And you know what I mean. And I can talk about it and do some videos about it, and just find like some really, really unique ways to what you got with jigs. Yeah. Oh, I think his jig. Hold on a second. I'll pull it up. It's probably his jig comment. Yeah, you know what I mean? I mean, that was it. Like, that's kind of like, yeah, Adam's money, man. If anybody out there watching this needs custom jigs made, his studio's set up. He's rocking and rolling. He can freaking, I've got a bunch. I could do a whole video on freaking a dozen jigs that Adam has done that I have that have caught fish. You know, my thing is, I'll be honest with you, my number one thing I hate it is when I lose one of his freaking jigs. Because I get bit, and knucklehead that I am, you know, didn't replace my line, didn't retie my line, and it's on me. And I got an 18, 19-inch smallmouth on there, and freaking boom, I lost a freaking custom jig that he made. You know, I've been fortunate enough, I haven't snapped at any rods lately, but I have lost some jigs. And you know, it's all stems from that. You know, I think it's just me. It's not that, but I always hate it when someone makes me like a beautiful custom bait and then I do something knucklehead that I do something. But yeah, they all, you know, crazy sick patterns. I don't think I have brought it up with me, but he can send you, he did one for me, and it's probably a video on my page. With I know I posted it on Facebook. What's the actual crawl? Was it Kraken crawl? I can't remember. Basically, it was like the scup colored red crawl with a stealth blade, a clear stealth blade. And I was out with Thomas Godby, and that's basically where all my fish were caught with that on the New River. And that was it was Adam's bait. And I threw a whole bunch of baits too. It was like a Thursday evening. After 4 o'clock, we fished from like 4 until 7:30. I love that window on the New River, and on my river. And so many tournaments shut down at like 2 o'clock. They missed the entire bite. Like, I don't understand that. You know, it's something I just can't get my head around. People laugh at me, but I'm just like, dude, you're in the tournament business. You want people to catch fish, and there's a bite window from like 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 6:30, basically 50% of the time during the year, and nobody gets to catch any of those fish, right? The whole point is to catch fish. You know, what do I care what time of day you catch it? Like, you know, as long as it's within like in the parameter, right? But yeah, that was it, man. I think I caught 15. I can't remember what we caught that. I think that morning I caught 20 to 25 good size, 12 to 18 in that range. Half of them came on that. And then with Thomas, I fished with Thomas in the evening, and almost all of them came on that same bait. And bent that thing all to hell. And I'm still waiting on some replacements. But yeah, Adam will hook you up. You need, Adam, if you need hair jig, you need hair jigs? or Ned rigs. You need Ned hair jig, dude. I don't worry about it. I'll take care of you. Boom, boom. Just I know exactly what colorations to do that too. I'm not sure what that is. Berkeley. Oh, yeah, okay. You lost your underspin. Yeah, man. It's crazy to me. I haven't quite figured out yet, like, how that happens. I'm gonna try and look at like one things about Melissa's that I like is it seems like her eye, she closes her eyes off, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it just seems like, and I don't know if she does anything like maybe like in terms of heat or whatever, but she closes it off. And I've never lost like, I pull on it, pull on it, pull on it. Whereas my other underspins, if I pull, 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 pull with a little torque and tension, it'll pop off. And I think it's because they don't close. There's too much of a gap in that little where they put the blade, because that's where I've always lost it. I've never lost, you know, I've never bent the hook. It's always I lose the blade. And it's just like smallmouth shaking the blade off is just, that's part of the course. But that's usually where my underspins go to shit is it's the bottom blade. It's I lose the blade. I don't, and then you're pretty much done. You're basically just a jig. So like I said before, so it's always good to have extra blades that you can get at Bass Pro or online at Lornet or wherever, as well as the top spin blades, as well as the under blades, just because that's going to happen. Yeah, that's it. Kick and crawl. Kick and crawl. That's what that thing was called. Fish Labs Kick and Crawl. They freaking, man, on the New River, they freaking could not freaking lay off that shit. I only had that one color. And then the other one, Adam, I had that I remember telling you about was it was your jig. It was your jig with the square bill. You know what I mean? Like it was, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it was the cream, the brown, inside the silicone, jig head on it with the whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, those were the two that they couldn't freaking lay off of. But the Fish Lab Kick and Crawl Natural Series with a stealth blade and the jaw dropper. Yep. Obviously, the jaw dropper is freaking absolute sick. Gold splatter and the molten crawl. But I'm really moving away from the molten crawl. Thomas probably ain't going to be happy at P-Line. I love that gold splatter, and the gold splatter seems to be a lot more enticing. The red has its, the red definitely has its window, I think, in the spring, but kind of after spring, middle, like after June or so, that red molten crawl one seemed to fall off a little bit, Adam, and then that gold splatter took off. And I think I don't know if we put a Saucy Swimmer. Might have been a Zoom. I don't remember what the soft plastic trailer was on that gold splatter with a little bit of hair that you provided me. Yeah, but they freaking couldn't lay off that. And that jaw dropper just has a real erratic action. If you look at that jig head, you can look at it online. It's crazy sick. And then the blade. Hold on a second. What you got, Trev? You talking about the copperhead chatter donkey from first gen? Yeah. Yeah. Like I said before, earlier. Okay. If that's your go-to, if you're a chatter guy and that's your go-to, the chatterbait. For me, I would put down the Z-Man chatterbait, all the Z-Man chatterbaits. I mean, obviously the jackhammer is never gonna, lose its place, but I think people are getting less bit on that because I think they're getting conditioned to that. But that first gen copperhead has a completely different sound. And you will watch them have two colors, okay? And you will watch them follow, like, and the water's clear, doesn't matter. You will watch the pod follow that bait because it's just a different noise. It's just a different vibration and sound with those beads in the front of that head. It just creates a totally different different kind of like enticement because it's not something they're used to having, used to seeing. And that's all what people should be about is if everybody else is throwing the Z-Man, throw something different, right? You still throw a chatterbait, just throw something a little bit subtler, maybe change the size, maybe change the trailer or, or a different brand with a different action. And you can still, fish the way you want to fish. But yeah, that's certainly the problem is, man, they're hard to come by. If you saw them at the tackle shop, they're hard to come by. They're out of stock a lot of places. They're out of stock around me. You can't even get them. Bass Pro don't even have them at my Bass Pro shop. And local tackle shops don't carry P-line or first gen up here. So I usually get Thomas. Thomas usually sets me up from P-line. When I get line, I'll get my first gen baits, the Swim X, the Jaw Dropper, the Copperhead. Their spinner baits are pretty money. I like their small compact top spins. Those are Smallie killers, crushers. Again, that top spin is kind of like a variation of your old beetle spin when you were a kid. And so it's obviously it's a little bit different, but it fundamentally is the same in terms of they will chase that thing down. When they're chasing, they're going to chase that thing down. I actually prefer that to a spinnerbait. I know Troy will probably kill me. But I actually prefer the top spins and underspins to spinnerbaits. Unless it's a small compact spinnerbait, like a Dara spin, which is Japanese spinnerbait. I'm just not a big spinnerbait guy. My hookup ratios aren't very good. And the big ones, the small compact ones where they could just put it in there like that. I'm much more effective, probably because I'm not as patient as I should be when it comes to that. But use the Mini Max. Tennessee Shad Kitech Slim Swimmer. Yep. Yeah, the Kitech's got a bunch. I'm going to say this, guys. I'm working on it. Coming here. Probably should have it in the next 2 weeks. There's a lot of Kitech that doesn't come to the States. A lot. And it's crazy. It's like 400, 500 SKUs, in terms of what Kitech offers. And most of them, we're all familiar with the swim impact and all that. Okay. Swing impact and all that, right? Have been for years. It's always been a go-to for a lot of people. But there is a lot of different soft plastics finesse from Kitech and a lot of terminal tackle from Kitech that does not come. I'm not saying it doesn't come to the United States. I shouldn't say that. You don't see it in a lot of places. West Coast, you see it a lot more than you do on the East Coast. So if you can find a shop on the West Coast, online shop on the West Coast, they probably have a lot of it and they can deliver it to you. But when you look at it, it's like I said, it's 500-600 SKUs of stuff. When you look at going through the manufacturer catalog and you're just like, your jaw just drops because you're like, why is that not being sold here? Like, why is no one carrying that? Because the reality of it is tackle shops are limited by how many SKUs, that they can carry of every particular brand. And so everybody wants to carry the same. It's the worst nightmare is when every tackle shop in your area within 100 miles of your house carries the same shit. Like that's the worst freaking nightmare. And so we want to be different, and try and be able to get a lot of different stuff, a lot of custom stuff, a lot of JDM stuff, plus a lot of brands from Japan that just nobody else sells, that are awesome for smallmouth. Again, filling that niche. What you got there? Hold on a second. Adam, you got nobody carries first gen around here. Otherwise, yeah. Which baffles me though, because they do carry P-line. Like Dick's will carry P-line, but Dick's doesn't seem to carry first gen anymore on the East Coast. Like, I don't know what their deal is because P-line and first gen are together, same company. Along with the nets, Beckman nets is P-line. There's a bunch. But yeah, I don't know what's going on there. And like I said, my Bass Pro doesn't have any of their stuff either. Maybe yours does down in Richmond. But I haven't been able to find first gen, with the exception of one or two things about 4 months ago at Bass Pro. So I don't know if that's a contractual thing or they're not supplying Bass Pro or not. Bass Pro does a lot of that stuff online, so maybe a lot of the first gen stuff is online only. I know first gen is sold at Tackle Warehouse and Fish USA primarily. But Dick's and Bass Pro, they may have it online only, and that's happening. I've talked to guys at Dick's, two of my Dick's in Rockville, in this part of Maryland, that have basically told me that they're basically moving a lot, other than like the major brands, which is like Rapala and Berkeley and Six Sense, and they're moving a lot of their brands to the online, out of their stores, and they're shrinking their fishing department. So at least that's the way it is around here. I don't know about everywhere else, like in different places. I think Dick's has probably felt the brunt of Academy in Virginia, in this part of the country, with all the new academies opening up in Fredericksburg and out in Western Virginia and Richmond. And I think Dick's is probably, you can still find some good deals there though. If you're looking for like name brand stuff, for sure. But yeah, first gen is no longer available on the shelves. That's for sure. Mini Max is very good. Same size blade as the Stealth blade. Only one's acrylic. I prefer the smaller bladed jigs. Yeah, I agree. All right, guys. So that's it. Man, 10:20. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope I'll do this on replay. I'll put it up on Facebook. Put it up on people can watch it whenever they want to watch. Again, I'll come back on and do a follow-up for the 5 River event, update everything, update the 5+1 rivers. There's really no boundaries for that event, for the most rivers except for the James River. There may be for the Shenandoah, because I'm waiting on, I don't know what's going on with the North Fork and the South Fork. The main stem is good to go from Front Royal all the way up to the Millville Dam. And then the James River is from the headwaters to Cartersville. So those are really the only two with boundaries, because it's all of the Roanoke, all of the Stanton and Roanoke, all of the Dan, and then North Fork, Holston, and Rappahannock. I'm sorry, Rapidan and Ravenna. Hope I got that right. I have to double check. Maybe it's Columbia. Anyway, I'll figure it all out. But anyway, Ravenna empties into Columbia, but I think Cartersville is a little bit below there, and so that's the break line for the 5 River event. You say you saw Chad Hoover talking about River Bassin with a Mini Max. Oh yeah, that was years ago. That's crazy how long he's been doing it. I mean, I'll give him that. I'll do that update too. I'm gonna post that up too tonight. I'm gonna be up for a while because I got a lot of boxes to open. Smallmouth series, I think we got 2 guys from the Chaser series, guys that have fished in our series. Troy, I think, is in 4th place, 3rd or 4th place. And Mark King is in 4th place, right behind him. They're pretty darn close. Behind those guys from Minnesota that are fishing lakes. Just kidding. But I know they're fishing lakes. They got to be. I think these guys put up like 96 inches or something already in the KBF Small October monthly Smallmouth Challenge series. So a lot of people are probably looking at that and not thinking to get in, but double dip, triple dip. You also got a double dip opportunity if you want to fish the James. I think Chris Johnston's series has an event on Saturday on the James River, as well as the Maury River, I think. So there's a couple, and plus the KBF. So there's a couple opportunities to double dip, for sure. This weekend for anybody who wants to fish multiple events. Trev, get in the fall brawl already. You got until November 30th to freaking register fish until November 30th, and you've already caught a whole bunch of fish the last couple of days that you haven't been able to put in. Just go ahead and join the fall brawl, or I'm just going to slide your ass in. Because there's no reason why you shouldn't be fishing the fall brawl with your river being as good as it is right now. Anyway, guys, I appreciate everybody. Again, always just send me a message, hit me up, text me, call me, send me a message on Facebook if you got any questions. Any of these baits I covered today, you're interested in. Again, when I post this over on YouTube, when this goes over to YouTube, may already be on YouTube, or when I post it on Facebook, just go ahead and comment on there, Guggen. Like I said, I got a whole case box of Guggen squad, Guggen baits. And I got some. Hold on one second. Let me show this one quick. If anybody fishes with, we got like 25 freaking packs of the Slim Shake worm. If anybody fishes the Slim Shake Guggen, if you're a Guggen squad guy and you fish the Slim Shake, do me a favor and hit me up, and I'll send you one of these, because I don't fish the Slim Shakes. Not my brand. Worm fishing like that, I mean, it's not my thing. So I'm gonna give them away. So hit me up, let me know, and I'll drop those in the mail, get them out to you, along with all the other stuff I got going out this week. And hopefully you've got a lot of prize packs for everybody fishing the event this weekend. Big shout out to our sponsors. Make sure you take advantage before the end of the night. I think tonight ends the Rugged Road. And don't forget to use that Power Queen. $179 for a 12.800 amp battery. You're not going to beat that. Okay. Hope everybody has a good night and safe week. And I will see you again next time.